Oh, I can't stop eating it. The crunch from the pistachio and the pomegranate. I'm gonna eat this entire huge bowl of salad. Mmm. Mmm. It's so good! Hi there everybody, Dina here, and on my channel I like taking classic comfort foods and turning them into healthier, vegan versions. So if this sounds interesting to you, make sure to like, subscribe to my channel, and please comment, let me know what you think, and share if you have somebody you think would like these recipes. So this week we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and I thought I might do a little makeover on some of our favorite classics. Things I love like mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole, usually a green bean casserole or some kind of green salad something. Everybody has their own family recipe, right? Well, not only can those be a little bit not so great for you, loaded with fat and sugars and all kinds of tasty but not so great for you things. This week we're going to elevate those dishes and we're going to keep them delicious, whole foods, plant-based, and easy to make, because that's key for me too. Easy to make. So first let's get started with our humble little sweet potato. This recipe is easy and it will blow your guests away. It turns out so festive and so pretty. So let me show you how I make it. So to start, I just washed and peeled 4 medium-sized sweet potatoes, and I have 2 bamboo straws, one on either side, to just keep me from cutting all the way through, and I'm making about 1/4-inch slices all the way down each sweet potato, to give us somewhere to stuff a few red onions and to make sure our balsamic glaze gets down nice and deep into the sweet potato. Next, I am just very thinly slicing some purple onion to put into the slices on the sweet potatoes. I'll go about every 3rd or 4th slice. I'll go in with a very thin piece of onion, and I'll do this to all 4 of the potatoes, and I'll try not to break them all the way open. These are a little bit more difficult than a regular potato to make Hasselback, but if you take a few minutes and a little bit of patience, it is so worth it. And what makes this sweet potato recipe so special is this awesome glaze that would go great on just about any holiday dish. I started with just a 1/2 cup of reduced cranberry juice, a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, a 1/4 cup of hot sauce. This is homemade hot sauce, but use your favorite brand. And I also have some pink salt, some garlic powder, and onion powder. And to that, I'm just going to use some balsamic vinegar, about a 1/4 cup, a 1/4 to 1/2 cup, depending on how much tang you want in it. My hot sauce is pretty vinegary, so I went with about a 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar. And I'm just going to get this mixed all the way up and pour this over my sweet potatoes. And I just want to spoon this over and let it drizzle down inside the cuts on the sweet potato. And I'll make sure that they're all glazed pretty evenly. But about halfway through the cooking process, I'm going to go into the pan and get all of the juice that has dropped the bottom of the pan and re-glaze them or baste them while they cook. So I have my oven preheated to 350, and I'm going to cook these in the iron skillet. You can cook them in a glass casserole dish or whatever bakeware you have is fine. Just make sure that you're able to cover it with a lid, with an oven-proof lid, or cover it in foil. I'm just going to cover mine in foil while it bakes, and then for about the last 10 minutes of baking, I'll take it off and make sure they're reglazed so they're nice and shiny, and oh, they turn out so beautiful. So after I have covered them with foil, they will bake for about 35 to 40 minutes until they're nice and tender, and then I'll take the foil off and let them bake for about another 10 minutes after reglazing them. And once they're out of the oven, look at how beautiful and shiny and glossy and tasty they look. They are so amazing. So I'm just topping them with a little bit of fresh green onion and fresh chopped parsley. And I have to tell you, these turned out so amazing. These are definitely going to be a regular holiday rotation. So the next thing I want to share with you is how I make my mashed potatoes super flavorful and delicious without a ton of added extra fat. So I can save a little bit of room for that piece of pumpkin pie I'm going to have later, and probably pecan pie too. So I'm starting with just 4 to 6 potatoes here, and you can double all of these amounts if you're cooking for like a large crowd, but this makes a pretty good portion amount for regular size family, 4 to 6 people. So I've got my potatoes washed, and I like to leave the skin on my potatoes. I like more of a rustic mashed potato. If you like smooth, creamy mashed potatoes, then go ahead and peel them. But the first thing I want to do is roast my garlic. And I'm just going to get that going real quick by chopping off the top of the garlic. Just top off the whole top so that all your little pieces of garlic in there are exposed, so we can get some salt in there. So usually with roasted garlic, what you'll do is soak it with a little bit of olive oil and salt and then roast it in the oven. But here is the first trick I'm going to use to cut some of the fat out of this recipe and make an amazing roasted garlic. Is instead of olive oil or other oil, I'm going to use a little bit of aquafaba. I'm just going to soak that down into the top of the garlic bulb there. And I've got it on just a little piece of foil here. And I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of pink salt. About a 1/4 teaspoon or so. I'm just going to wrap it up. And I'm going to pop this in the oven while my potatoes boil and I get all of the rest of my ingredients together. This will go into a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes, and it will be like perfectly creamy, brown, and roasted. If you love garlic flavor but don't like it to be too overpowering, try roasted garlic because it's a game changer. It has more of a sweet nuttiness to it than that raw, sharp garlic flavor. And to me, it just goes so well in these mashed potatoes. Okay, so while my garlic is roasting, I'm going to start my potatoes, and I'm just going to roughly quarter these, just so they cook a little bit faster. You can boil them whole if you want. It's up to you. It's your kitchen, right? So while I quarter these and get these into a pot, I'm just going to tell you about the other swaps I have over here to make our mashed potatoes nice and flavorful, rich and creamy without all that dairy. And this is great even if you're not vegan or vegetarian. Getting together for the holidays, there are a lot of people that are intolerant of dairy. So this is a really great recipe, even if you're the only vegan or you're not cooking a completely vegan meal. This is a great alternative for any family. And like I said, it saves you a little room for that pie and all that good stuff later. So I just have some rice milk. And what I like about using rice milk in the mashed potatoes is it gives a creaminess without too much sweetness or additional flavor. It's a very neutral flavored milk, And I made my own rice milk, which is super easy. I just blended up 1 cup of rice with 1 date, a pinch of salt, and just strained it out afterwards. And it makes a nice, creamy, rich milk. Like I said, neutral in flavor. I have about 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and we'll add salt, of course. And I have about 1.5 cups of vegetable broth. And this is just my favorite non-chicken veggie broth powder that I mixed with the water. And I'm also going to use about 1/4 cup of soaked cashews. And that's it. And between the roasted garlic and these ingredients, you will have perfect mashed potatoes. So let me get these on and boiling. I'm just going to go in with about 1 tablespoon of salt. We'll be putting a lot of water in here, so that won't be too much salt. If you are salt-free or eating reduced sodium for whatever reason, you can reduce the amount of salt you put in here and save it for seasoning later, or you can omit it altogether and use a different seasoning blend or a light salt. But I like to start with just the salt and cold water, and I'll bring that to a boil on the stove, and I'll let it boil for about 20 minutes until they're nice and really, really tender. Alright, my potatoes are done cooking, and after they're finished boiling, I like to just drain the water out and set them back on the hot stove for just a second so that they're not mushy and soggy. You can let the steam kind of evaporate out of them a little bit to dry them out just a little bit, because we want to put flavorful liquid in there, not just water, right? So good tip on that. So let me show you my garlic after it's out of the oven. It's still pretty hot. Pretty hot. Okay. Ooh, it's really hot. Really hot. All I'm going to do is just take and squeeze it out. Oh, it's so hot. It's so hot. It's so hot. Oh, it's so hot. If you have young, soft lady hands, you may want to let it cool a little bit longer than I did, but I'm impatient, and I'm an old mom and grandma, and I have tough hands. So yeah, that's pretty hot. Be careful you don't burn yourself if your hands are a little bit more sensitive. And a good thing for garlic hands, a tip you might not know, is you can take a little bit of coffee grounds and wash your hands in them, and it will get rid of most, if not all, of the garlic smell. Okay, so after I've got my garlic in there and my hands nice and clean, I'm just going to add my other ingredients, and I'm adding about 1 cup, 3/4 to 1 cup of my rice milk. That's about 1 cup. And I'm going to go in with some cracked black pepper. And if you have a food processor, you can certainly do this in a food processor or with a hand blender. But I like the chunky texture of just a hand mashed potato. If you're going for creamy, certainly use your food processor or stand mixer or blender. And I have just blended up my cashews into a nice cream, and that's just with a pinch of salt and the water they were soaking in. Nice cashew cream sauce. And I'm going to add my vegetable broth next. And I'm going to start with about half of that and see how much more liquid we need. Just go in there and just get to work, giving them a good mash. And it will look like a lot of liquid at first. Don't worry, it will all get mashed in and they'll be nice and creamy. It's not too much, I promise. But if you're worried it's going to be too much liquid, start with a little bit less milk or broth. It just depends on how many potatoes you have and how big your potatoes are. But you want it to look a little bit like too much liquid at first. And once they're about halfway to where you want them, you want to just give them a little taste, just to see where your salt level is. Because it's going to depend on if you salted or how much salt you put in the cooking water and how salty your vegetable broth is. These do need, for me, a little bit of salt, and I think I'll put in just a little bit more vegetable broth, which this one isn't very salty, so it could use a little bit more. And they're looking pretty near perfect. And I'm just going to give them another little taste. That roasted garlic in there makes these so good. Another thing about the humble little mashed potato here is once you cook them, you can let them come to room temperature and just reheat them on top of the stove or in the oven. Just add a little bit more broth to them right before you reheat them, and they'll be fine. And the last thing I like to add, just to make them look nice and festive and pretty, is just some fresh chopped flat leaf Italian parsley. It adds a little bit of flavor, but it also makes them look nice and festive and pretty, right? So, being that today is not Thanksgiving, and it's just Mr. Tony and I, it looks like we're having potatoes for dinner. I'm going to have to look at a couple recipes in my recipe book I've written down over there and see what I can do with leftover mashed potatoes. I'll let you know. So good. So the next recipe I want to share is this quick but insanely delicious kale salad, which is going to convince even the kale haters. It is that good. It's so good. If you think you don't like kale, try this salad. So the first thing I've done is just chopped up my kale, and you can make as little or as much as you want of the salad. And I'm just going to take about half of this orange, and you can use whatever citrus you like to. And I'm going to use this side because I'm going to use a little bit of zest and the rest of this juice for making our dressing. But I just want to get a little bit of citrus juice onto my kale, make sure I don't get any seeds in there. And I'm just going to massage it just a little bit with that citrus juice. And this will just kind of help it to get to be, you know, really nice and tender and flavorful. And it's going to be so good. Just break it down a little bit because, you know, kale can be a little tough and chewy. And I think that's what most people don't like. Another thing is it's pretty bitter. But we're going to add some things in here to sweeten up the salad, and we're going to do a vinaigrette that's super sweet, and it just balances so well with the kale salad. So I'm just going to set that aside while I prep some other ingredients. I've got a couple of pomegranates here and my oranges, and I'm going to roast this beautiful butternut squash. Let's cut open this beautiful pomegranate. Oh, look at that. How beautiful is that? Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm just going to take the back of my knife here and tap out these seeds. It usually works that way. And these pomegranates are just so beautiful. I love the little crunch that the pomegranate seeds give. So good. And it's such a great holiday treat, pomegranates. They're in season during the holidays, and they're just so beautiful and festive. The little seeds look like just like little jewels. So pretty and so colorful. And you know, that makes a big difference when you're trying to eat healthy. The more colorful, vibrant foods that you can get onto your plate, the happier you will be. You'll be happy, you'll be healthy. At least I know I am. It makes me smile. It makes me smile to eat all these colorful, flavorful foods in season. And yeah, I'm making a mess here. That's okay. It wouldn't be the holidays if it wasn't a little bit of a mess, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and roast my butternut squash. And if you don't want to start with a whole butternut squash like I have here, you can certainly go to your grocery store's produce section. This time of year, most of the grocery stores have readily available in the produce section, already cubed and cut up fresh butternut squash. But I like buying it, you know, I like saving a little bit of money and buying the whole squash. It stays good a long time, and really, it's not too difficult to deal with. It's a little bit of a pain, but you know, in most cases, you don't even have to peel it. And if you don't mind the texture, the skin is actually edible. I don't know if most people know that or not. You can wash it really well and you can eat the skin. It's a little bit chewy, but they're a little bit, you know, of a hassle for some people to peel and cube up. So if you want to save a little bit of time, you can always get the fresh cubed one out of the produce aisle. But if you're going to roast your butternut squash, I don't recommend you get the frozen one. It just doesn't turn out the same as when you get it fresh. It goes a little bit watery and mushy, and that's not what we want. We want it nice and toasty and roasted. So I'm just going to finish cubing this up, and I'm going to save some of the seeds to toast too. I'm just going to scoop my seeds out there. I'll only be using half of this for the salad, and the other half of the roasted butternut squash I'm just going to save for meal prep this week and have it on top of some grain bowls, which sounds really good to me. So half of it I'm just going to roast whole and go ahead and put on the pan for my meal prep this week. But for my beautiful kale salad, I'm going to cube the other half into about, 1 inch or ½ inch chunks. Just, bite-sized little chunks, so you can kind of get a bite of everything on your fork. It's so good. These flavors all go so well together, the pomegranate, the squash, the kale, and all the other little goodies we'll put in there. So good. So I'm just going to get this chopped up and put on my pan. Little chunks. And I don't mind that I get a few little bit smaller pieces. They'll toast up nice and brown all around and just add a varying texture to the salad. So that's okay with me. I don't need them completely uniform and the same size, just as long as most of them are generally about the same size. So what I want to do with my squash is I'm not using oil to roast these either. These will roast up really nice and really good, get nice and toasty and brown with just a little bit of aquafaba. So I'm just going to put probably about 2 tablespoons of aquafaba on there. And the one that I'm roasting whole, I'm going to go ahead and just coat that with some aquafaba and flip it over and coat both sides with a little aquafaba. It's like the magic ingredient in the vegan kitchen. That and nutritional yeast. Can't live without those. Okay, so that's good for my squash. I want to get them just nice and coated and spread them out kind of evenly, give them a little bit of breathing room. so they can toast up nice. And let me see. Give my hands a little wipe there. Aquafaba hands. Okay, and I'm just going to hit these with a little bit of pink salt. And that one too. And I'll roast these in the oven right alongside of anything else I have going on. I have garlic roasting in there right now. I'm just going to pop these into the oven at 375 and they will roast for probably about 20 minutes. I'll check them at 20 minutes and see how they are. You know, in the holidays when you have several things going on in the oven, you might need to adjust temperatures for several different things. I find that almost everything can be cooked at 375. Almost everything. So it's a good temperature to have your oven if you're cooking multiple things throughout the day. You could roast these if this is the only thing that you're doing at the time. You could pop them in there for 15 minutes at 400 or 425 and get them going a little bit quicker. But I have other things that I'm cooking today, so this is how I'm doing this one, and it works perfectly fine. Alright, so I've got my kale, and I have my roasted butternut squash, which I have just roasted up nice, and it's nice and cooled off now. I just set it aside for about 10 to 15 minutes after it roasted, so it gets nice and cool. You can put it in there warm and dress it warm, and you could totally serve this as a warm salad also. So I've got my butternut squash in there. Let's build this beautiful salad. It looks so beautiful, festive, and vibrant. I've got the zest from my orange, about half of the zest there that's going in. Some other goodies going in here are some dried cranberries. Can't have a holiday meal without those. Our delicious pomegranate seeds, which I have tried not to snack on too many of them. Might have snacked on a few if my teeth look a little red. That's probably why. And I've got a little bit of toasted pistachios. So good for holiday meals. And I'm just going to blend this up. Just mix this up a little bit. Oh, how beautiful does that look? That is such a beautiful salad. Who wouldn't be happy to have that? I know I would be. It looks so good. So beautiful and colorful, full of life and life-giving nutrients. Thanks living. Thanks living is what we're celebrating here. Alright, so that looks pretty perfect. Let's put together a yummy dressing. So I've got my little blender cup here, and I'm going in with 2 cloves of garlic. You could omit that if you're not a big raw garlic fan, or you could use a little bit of garlic powder or roasted garlic. And I've got about a tablespoon of tahini. You need something in there for a little richness with all of the things that are acidic and bitter in there. You need a little bit of richness in there, so use whatever nut butter or fat you want to use here. But I find tahini works great on kale salads because it has a little bit of that sweetness that you're looking for. And I've got the juice from my orange. I'm going to go in with a little bit, about a tablespoon of stone ground mustard, which hasn't been opened yet. So let's open that. Alright, about a tablespoon of the stone ground mustard. So building a good dressing, you want to put something with a little bit of fat, something with some acid, something with some sweetness, and something with some flavor. So we've got some garlic, some tahini, some orange juice for the acidity, and we're going to go in with a little bit of maple syrup, about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, for a little bit of sweetness, and for a little bit more sweetness and acidity, I like to use just a little bit of balsamic vinegar. You could certainly use just apple cider vinegar or sherry vinegar would be good. Either of those, any of those. Oh, don't forget a pinch of salt. and just blend that up until it's nice and smooth and creamy. Alright, and I'm just going to give this a quick taste just to make sure that I have the right amount of salt and sweet that I want in there. It's pretty good. I think it could use just a little bit more sweet. So I'm just going to add a touch more maple syrup. It's a little bit on the too mustardy side. So I can just stir that in. All right. And I'm just going to pour some of this on my salad directly, and the rest I'm going to pour into a little bowl on the side. And you could double these amounts to make a larger portion for larger salads, or to have enough to keep on hand for the week in the refrigerator. It's so good. You'll want it on grain bowls, salad, to dip your seitan nuggets in. It's just really good. All right, let's give this a mix. Oh, this is going to be good. And when you go to serve it, you can add a little bit more dressing on the top. Oh, how good does that look? I cannot wait to taste this. And this will stay so good at room temperature, sitting out on the counter or on the table. If you're having like a buffet style family get together, it will stay good. And that's the good thing about kale, is it won't go wilty super fast. So I'm just going to see if I can get a little bit of everything in a bite. I've got some pomegranates, see, a pistachio, a piece of butternut squash, a cranberry. Let's taste it. This is a good salad. It's such a good salad. I love it. I hope you'll try this out. Even if you think you don't like kale or don't like salads, try it this way. It might change your mind, maybe. Anyway, that's going to do it for my 3 recipe sides I wanted to share with you this week. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving week or Friendsgiving week. Enjoy time with your family, and I truly appreciate you taking time out to watch my videos. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!